If you're watching this, you're 100% a horror fanatic and we approve. Let us know where you are watching this from and be a part of our community. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support means everything. Let's start. Christmas Eve had always belonged to the Haywood family. For as long as Lena could remember, her parents hosted the dinner. 20 people crammed around a stretched dining room table, the house bursting with laughter, cinnamon candles, and clinking wine glasses. They lived in the top floor of a duplex that her father owned, renting the bottom unit out to various tenants over the years. In December of 2018, a new renter had just moved in downstairs. A man in his 30s named Kenton. Quiet, reclusive, the kind of tenant Lena's parents preferred. But within days of his moving in, strange patterns began to form. The front door opened and slammed repeatedly through the night. Muffled arguments filtered up through the floorboards, sometimes escalating to full-on shouting matches. Lena's dad went down one night to confront him. When he returned, he didn't say much, only muttered, "Something's not right about that guy." Christmas Eve arrived, snowy and beautiful. The Haywoods' apartment glowed with warmth. Roast ham in the oven, tree lights blinking, the fireplace crackling. After the main course, Lena's Uncle Eli stepped outside for one of his habitual smoke breaks. He'd left his phone on the table, and when it buzzed a minute later, her father handed it to Lena. "Run this down to him, will you?" She took it and hurried to the front door. But before stepping outside, she noticed something odd. The back door was wide open. That shouldn't have been. Between the front entrance and the rear yard was a narrow hallway with 3 doors. One to their apartment, one to the downstairs unit, and the hallway itself. The back door at the end of the hall stood ajar, cold air seeping in. "Uncle Eli?" she called, stepping out onto the snowy patio. No response. She spotted the shed. Its door was open. "Uncle?" she said again, stepping toward it. There was movement inside, and a figure stepped out. A man. For a moment, she relaxed, assuming it was her uncle. But as the figure moved closer and the light from the kitchen window spilled across the yard, her stomach turned cold. It wasn't Eli. It was Kenton, the tenant from downstairs. His stride was too fast, too eager. There was something off in his face. No recognition, no greeting, just focused eyes. Lena turned and ran. She slammed the door behind her and bolted to the front yard, finding Eli leaning against the railing, cigarette in hand. "Someone's in the shed," she panted. It was Kenton. He came out and came right at me. Eli raised an eyebrow. "You sure? Positive?" He chuckled, brushing her off. "You've always had a wild imagination." She didn't argue, just waited beside him until he finished smoking, heart hammering in her chest. They went back inside together, and Lena immediately told her father. His face darkened, but he said little. He waited until dinner was over before checking outside. When he returned, he said, "Shed's shut," but he won't answer his door. The night wore on. Family left in waves. By 1 a.m., the house was silent except for the dying fire and the soft drone of an old Christmas movie on the TV. Lena lay curled on the couch, too comfortable to move, wrapped in a blanket with the tree's soft lights blinking nearby. She drifted in and out of sleep. Then came the sound, creaking, on the stairs. At first, she assumed it was her sister or mother. The thick carpet muffled most movement upstairs, but the stairs themselves creaked slightly when weight shifted on them. She didn't move. Then something brushed against the Christmas tree. Ornaments clinked. One thudded softly to the floor. Her eyes opened. She flipped onto her side to glance at the tree. Nothing. The branches were still. Then she rolled back the other way and froze. A man stood over her, leaning down slightly. Not her father. Not anyone from the family. Kenton. His eyes were cold. Unreadable. He didn't blink. Lena screamed. He lunged to cover her mouth, but she shrieked again, louder. Her father's door burst open. Footsteps thundered. Kenton turned and sprinted for the stairs. By the time Lena's father got outside, Kenton's car was already peeling down the street. He never returned. Lena's parents had copies of Kenton's ID, lease, and payment history. The police tracked him down easily. Her father pressed charges for breaking and entering. In court, Kenton said nothing, offering no defense. The case was over quickly, but Lena still remembers the exact way he looked at her. The calculated stillness. The way he watched her sleep before deciding to strike. He hadn't come for anything loud. Not cash. Not electronics. He'd come for silence. The idea sounded so simple, so romantic. Caleb had just moved into a new apartment with his girlfriend Jessie. Their first real place together. He wanted to make their first Christmas special. Something they'd remember. Something different from store-bought garland and plastic trees. "Let's cut down our own tree," he said one snowy Saturday in December. Jessie wasn't entirely sold, but she agreed. They lived in New Hampshire after all. Pine and spruce forests weren't hard to come by. So they packed up Caleb's truck, bundled in scarves and gloves, and drove deep into the hills. The snow had just started falling again, thick flakes drifting like ashes in the air. Caleb found a small clearing off the road, the tires crunching over gravel barely visible beneath the snow. "This spot's perfect," he said. Jessie pulled her hood tighter. "You sure we're allowed to do this? Who's gonna stop us?" Caleb grinned. They headed uphill, trudging through ankle-deep snow. Jessie complained about the cold, about her boots, about how this was not as fun as he promised. Caleb just laughed. They searched for the right tree for nearly half an hour. Most were too tall, too wide. But finally, nestled between a few larger spruces, they found it. A squat, symmetrical spruce about 6 feet tall. "This is the one," Caleb said, patting the trunk. He raised the axe he'd brought, and with a dozen sharp swings, brought it down. The tree toppled onto the snow with a whispery thud. Caleb wiped his brow, proud. "Help me carry it?" Jessie rolled her eyes. "I don't have gloves." "You didn't bring any?" "No." Caleb sighed and tossed her the truck keys. "Go grab the extras from the back seat." She jogged off back down the hill. Caleb stayed behind, alone with the fallen tree. The forest around him was still, silent, aside from the soft hiss of snowfall. He sat on the tree trunk and waited, watching the woods fade into shadow as the sky turned gray-blue with dusk. He turned on his flashlight, holding it up so Jessie could spot him on her way back. That's when he heard it. Footsteps, crunching snow, steady and close. He grinned. "Jess." No answer. He waved the light. "Come on. I know you're trying to sneak up on me." Still nothing. The footsteps stopped. Now the silence was pressing, heavy. He narrowed his eyes and stood up, heart beginning to pick up pace. "Jessie," he said again, louder. Still no reply. So he set the flashlight down on the stump, still glowing, and stepped carefully into the trees. "Let's see how you like it when I do the scaring," he muttered. He moved quietly, ducking behind a pine tree, ears straining. More footsteps, closer now. Then someone ran into the clearing. But it wasn't Jessie. It was a man, a tall figure in a heavy coat, hood pulled low over his head. He moved fast, too fast, toward the flashlight, then stopped abruptly. He looked down at it, then slowly looked around. Caleb held his breath. The man bent down, picked up the flashlight, and turned it off. Now they were both in darkness, and Caleb knew without a doubt that this man hadn't come for a tree. He ran, crashing through the snow. He tore downhill, branches scraping his arms, lungs burning. He didn't look back. He didn't want to see how close the man was. Then, in the distance, he heard Jesse screaming. "Caleb!" A horn honked. Once, twice. He burst into the clearing to find Jesse in the truck, doors locked, hand on the horn. He dove in and slammed the door shut. "Drive!" she yelled. He didn't ask questions. As they sped back down the snowy road, both of them looked back and saw him, the man, standing exactly where their truck had just been. Watching, they didn't stop until they hit the edge of town. Later that night, shaking and pale, they went to a Home Depot and bought a tree. It didn't feel festive. It didn't even feel real. They never went back to that forest. And every Christmas since, Caleb has refused to put their tree near the window, because part of him still wonders if the man in the pines might come looking for the one that got away. Cassie had only been a psychiatric nurse for 3 weeks when she pulled her first overnight holiday shift, Christmas Eve of 2015. Technically already Christmas morning by the time she pulled into the icy lot of Wellingford Psychiatric Center, headlights scattering off the wet pavement and glittering tinsel hung across the lobby windows. She had expected quiet, a skeleton crew of half-asleep nurses and dim hallway lights, and that's mostly what she got. Most of the patients were medicated and asleep, their rooms locked down for the night. But not Bertha. Bertha was different. 82 years old, frail and bird-like, with papery skin and a mouth full of gaps. Diagnosed with late-stage schizophrenia, she rarely slept. She spoke in broken riddles, giggled to herself, and often mumbled things that made Cassie's skin crawl. But tonight, the place felt different, quieter than usual. The combination of dim emergency lighting and multicolored Christmas bulbs strung across the nurses' station gave everything a soft, strange glow, half festive, half eerie. Cassie spent the first few hours rotating between computer tasks and checking on patients. It was just after 3 a.m. when she passed Bertha's room. The woman was wide awake. Cassie pushed the door open gently. "Bertha, you need anything?" Bertha turned her head toward her and grinned, a long, slow grin that seemed to stretch too far. Her eyes glinted in the faint light. Then she laughed, a shrill, airy giggle like she'd just heard the punchline to a joke Cassie wasn't in on. Cassie hesitated. "You okay?" Bertha looked away and mumbled something under her breath. Cassie leaned closer, only catching part of it. "Check the bathroom." "What?" Bertha didn't look back, just curled to her side and went still. Cassie stood there for a moment, uneasy, before walking to the small in-room bathroom and checking inside. It was empty, clean, nothing out of place. She returned to the hallway, the unease still prickling at her skin. From the nurse's station, she could see the main hallway bathroom across from her desk. Its lights weren't on. She stared at the door for a full minute. Then curiosity got the better of her. Cassie walked over and tried the light switch. Nothing. The lights stayed off. The air was colder here, pressing and damp. She stepped just inside the door, listening. And then she heard it, breathing, low, ragged. Not hers. Then a faint click came from one of the stalls. She backed out slowly and grabbed the door stopper from behind the desk. She wedged it under the bathroom door, allowing the soft hall lights to leak in just enough to see. Cassie got down on her knees and looked under the stall doors. No feet. One door was slightly ajar. The other was closed. She approached the closed one, pressed her face close to the thin crack between the door and the frame. Darkness inside. And something, a shape. She blinked. Was that? Cassie leaned in closer, and then a face leaned in from the other side. Eyes locked on hers, inches apart, both unmoving. Cassie stumbled backward with a strangled cry, heart slamming in her chest. She kicked the door shut, ran out and locked it from the outside. Hands shaking, she called over another nurse. They returned with the keys. When they opened the bathroom together, lights flicked on instantly. Both stalls empty, nothing out of place. No sign anyone had been inside. Could have been a patient, the other nurse offered, but Cassie was already shaking her head. No, the door was locked. No one could have gotten out. Before her shift ended, Cassie returned to Bertha's room. The old woman was awake again, staring at the ceiling. Cassie stepped inside. "Bertha," she said, voice low, "what did you mean about the bathroom?" No answer. Bertha didn't move. Cassie turned to leave. Then behind her, she heard, "Merry Christmas." Bertha's voice was high and soft, but that same grin had returned. Too wide, too long. Cassie said nothing, just grabbed her coat and left, heart heavy in her chest. Bertha was transferred a few weeks later to a hospice center. Cassie never saw her again, but sometimes, when she's home alone late at night, brushing her teeth or walking down the hallway toward a dark bathroom, she remembers that face in the stall, and the grin that seemed to know too much.